So I kind of want to start by just telling everyone the context for even this podcast in general, and then get into obviously why you are the one sitting in that chair. So I think I've shared this with you and everybody who's going to be on, but just so we're all on the same page, basically the idea is rather than me trying to act like the expert or fake it until I make it in this whole concept of fatherhood, I wanted to sit down and have conversations with people that are a little bit further ahead of me in life. And not saying that these people have it all figured out, but maybe there's pieces of wisdom that someone could offer along the way that drastically changes the trajectory of someone's life. And that's something I'm passionate about. It's obviously something I know you're passionate about. And I don't know, have you ever read the book, The Intentional Father? Or John Tyson?
Yes.
Okay. So in that book, he talks about this concept of the arc of life, and he challenges his son, go pick people that are a decade ahead of you, 2 decades ahead of you, and take them out to lunch or sit down in a conversation. And as I was reading that on a plane, I was like, that is a fantastic idea for me to do in my own life. And what if I didn't just keep that to myself? What if I shared it with other people?
What I think is interesting about what you're saying though, Lain, is, I mean, you've kind of just described what you've done since I've ever known you though. Like coming into school as a freshman, always seeking wisdom, seeking, people that have been there, done that. I feel like that kind of defines our relationship in the sense that you were always hanging around the family, trying to glean different things. But yeah, that you're exactly right. It's a great concept.
Yeah. And that, I mean, I want people to also know, first of all, everybody that sits in that chair across from me is someone that deeply means something to me, someone I highly respect. Obviously, with a platform on fatherhood, there's a checklist, right? Of like, I want this person to be a really good dad. I want them to be a good husband. I want them to have integrity and to, operate at the highest level in many different regards. And so for those of you watching, like the reason that Ryan is important to me is my background is I had a fantastic childhood. I'm not about to downplay that at all. But as I was stepping into college, I was also, my family was falling apart and I watched my parents go through a divorce, and Ryan was the first trusted voice that I found in that crazy season. And so the reason that I think I clung to you is I just saw you modeling it well. And I don't know if you felt like you were modeling it well or if you were just in the trenches yourself, but yeah, there were nights that I would overstay my welcome. But I just was trying to soak in everything that the Knight family was doing. I wanted to learn from you. And so, would love just to hear, I had you on a pedestal in one way or another, whether that was right or wrong, but in that season, which was going on close to 8 years ago, did you feel like you had it figured out, or were you just like, I'm doing the best I can?
By no means would Aubrey or I say that we had it figured out or do have it figured out. But I think one thing that we could say is that we were intentionally trying to figure it out. And I think really that's what parenting is about effort. You caught Aubrey and I at a time in our life where we had 5 kids, 4 kids at the time, and then 5 under one roof.
Yeah.
And we had kind of an epiphany moment when we had just 2 kiddos, and I had a mentor that I was seeking out, and Aubrey was seeking out a mentor too, and it was this guy named Brian. Him and his wife were our mentors, and they invited us over one day, and we were Aubrey and his wife Jeannie, who has passed. Just great mom, great woman. She was hanging out with Aubrey, and Brian's hanging out with me, and I have these 2 little ones. Right, I've got a Cooper who is just running around his living room, and Carson is just still kind of confined to a car seat. He's sleeping, and I've got them there, and he asked me this barrage of questions. He goes, "So hey, Ryan, what are your goals for your job?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, well, I'm going to do this by the time I'm 30, this." I'm just saying all these things. I had a 10-year plan. It was awesome. He goes, "Well, what's your plan for your family?" And I thought for a second, and I was like, I don't want to be embarrassed in front of my mentor. So I just started making stuff up. And then finally, I even could tell I sounded like I was making it up. And I go, well, I'm not really sure what's your plan. And he had an awesome plan. Like his plan was really, really good. And then he asked me this like gut wrenching question. He said, well, hey, what is more important, your job or your family? And I said, well, of course, my family. And he goes, doesn't sound like it.
Ooh.
And I just remember just sitting there. It felt like I had literally been punched in the stomach.
Right.
Because I was like, I've always wanted to be a dad. Like I just knew that I was going to be a dad. And when I was a dad, I was going to do it and do it well. And as we're driving home, Aubrey goes, hey, Ryan, you're really quiet. What's going on? I go, I don't know. You're quiet. What's going on with you? And she's like, well, I had a conversation with Jeannie. I go, oh, I must have had the same conversation with Brian.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like a catalyst to not just get through parenting, but to do it with some purpose. And like, think about like, what is our family mission statement? What do we want to be about? And even when you do things like that, you don't have it figured out. You're just trying to figure it out.
Right.
But it is 100 times better to be going through life with a plan than just getting hit by things and like, what am I going to do? At least Aubrey and I had that knowledge to say, hey, let's talk about like when our kids come up to us and ask us about like, hey, I heard this thing, sex. We need to talk about that. Yeah, we've got this all figured out. We're going to talk to you about this.
Yeah.
Just not being surprised by things.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. So something I'm obsessed with right now is this idea that like one conversation could drastically change someone's life. Like goes back to the root of
Brian rocked my world. Yeah.
So it's just crazy to me. Like you in a way were what Brian was to you. And that's not to pat someone on the back or give them more credit than they deserve, other than I think that's what happens when you faithfully model something. Is it's just like you're attracted to the idea of it because you just notice something different about that person and the way that they're living. And everyone wants like, what's the secret or what's that one takeaway? And I think that the more you lean into that, you realize it's like intentionality is what it comes down to. And that plays out different.
And that's such a intentionality. You and I have talked so many times and we use that word a lot. And I think the world overuses it. It's kind of like that buzzword that people throw out there to make sure people know like, hey, I'm really serious about this. But what I think that intentionality really is like you're living your life for something bigger than you. Yeah. And your family and your faith in Jesus Christ, like if that plays out within your family, that's a really good thing. Like I said, we don't have things figured out, but there are some really cool milestones that have happened in our family that I'm not going to lie, I'm really proud of. And I'm proud of my kids, proud of my wife. And so that intentionality is like, we're going to give it our best effort. And boy, have we made a lot of mistakes. Yeah. But it's still worth it. Yeah. Think about like with sports. Okay. If you want to improve, like Shep was talking about how he loves baseball. Yeah. And with sports, you can film yourself in your swing, and you can also look at other people and how they are in the batter's box, and you can try to like change things that are more technical to fix it. But when you look at yourself, sometimes you also see the things that you don't want to do. Yeah. And like the bad habits that you have. And so I think that that's kind of what we've done is we've seen some of the not so great things. We've seen that in other people. We've definitely seen it in ourselves. And then we just try to do better. Yeah. That's something that I am curious about in your life, because you are doing things different than the way that the world operates in regards to parenting and fatherhood in general. Is that because you had it modeled well for you growing up, or is it you learned from other people's mistakes, or was there more good to take from people in your life, or did you have to build what was broken? Yeah, great question. I've actually thought about this a lot, and I think Aubrey and I were both blessed with very intact families that weren't perfect, but mom and dad were together,
Yeah.
and they made it work. I feel like on the fatherhood side of things, I was modeled from my dad, Earl, who just lives 7 minutes away from me now. Which, if you knew our life story and how many times we've all moved, the fact that my mom and dad are 7 minutes away from me right now is just such a blessing.
That's so cool.
But I was modeled with a man who knows how to work hard. And he was such a hard worker, but he also did this thing that just blew me away when I was a kid. And that was, he said he would be someplace, he'd be there. He was at my games. I don't recall him missing games.
Wow.
He was there. I wrestled for a little while when I was in elementary and junior high, and I would just look up in the stands, and he'd just give me a thumbs up, and I was like, I'm ready to go. And just consistency, like he's a hard worker.
Yeah.
Like he was I think when I was, in elementary school and stuff, we didn't ever see him during the day. But when he came home, he wasn't like, it's time for the TV. He was invested in us. He'd come out and shoot baskets with me. So even though he was tired, that's what I was modeled. And I think that's why I wanted to be a dad, is because my dad, he really did model that. And my mom and dad together, when I was younger, what I remember is bringing people in the house and hospitality. Now, as they have progressed in their life, they've kind of strayed away from that a little bit, which is, not anything against them, but it's just they've kind of they don't do that as much anymore.
Right.
But that has actually been something that's good for Aubrey and I to see, because we now see, like, hey, when our kids leave the house, our marriage mission hasn't changed. We're still about hospitality. Like, we have a kid who's getting married at the end of this month.
That's crazy.
I know. You extrapolate that, a few more years out, and like, there's going to become a time when it's just Aubrey and I.
Yeah.
So I've seen marriage mission, but I've also seen parenting mission. And I do think it's been modeled for me. Can we learn from the things that we don't want to do? Like, my dad will tell you he's not the best conversationalist. And when I called, whenever they lived far away, I would say, hey, Dad, how are things going? He's like, good. You want to talk to your mom? And like that was that thing. I've learned that that's probably not the best way to do it. Nothing against him. It's very generational for him.
Yeah.
But I have been blessed with a great mom and dad, and I think Aubrey has too. We actually moved to the Ozarks so that we could be closer to her mom and dad, because they were just so influential in our life.
That's awesome. I love that. And I love whenever people can speak highly of their parents. And transparently, I think that that's something that I would caution, my generation on, is it's almost become like this aspect of pride to like shame your parents for how they raised you. And I'd be lying if I said I wasn't tempted to fall into that trap, because it's so typical of like the younger generation. But I've told Aspen so many times, like, I would rather focus on the 90% that my parents did right than the 10% they did wrong.
And you've done such a good job of that, Lain. Like, you really have. In all the conversations we've had, like the hurt conversations, the like excited conversations, you've honored your mother and father. And I agree with you 100%. Working with young adults, which is my world, that is kind of the trend, is to just bust on your parents for all the things that they didn't do, neglecting the fact that, even just like, think about the way that young people are provided for. Just like, some people get their insurance paid for, some people get their phones paid for. You've gotten into a college. Obviously, you've gotten that far. You didn't do that on your own. But I think we have to give grace, like truckloads of grace to our parents, because just like us, when we're trying to figure out something for the first time, that's what they were doing.
It's their first time being human.
Doing the best they know how.
Yeah.
I think I would just say that there's this one thing that young adults or new parents can put into the mix that is going to be life-changing. And it's going to sound very Sunday school answer and cliche.
Go for it.
But it's literally like leaning in on Jesus Christ. Like, it's like making sure Jesus Christ is a part of your DNA.
Yeah.
Thus being part of your family's DNA. And it doesn't mean being legalistic or anything. It just means like you seek something bigger than yourself.
That's so good. I'm curious because you said like earlier, you said our marriage mission doesn't change. And I am obsessed with, obviously, a little bit about what I do with Ray, of like, I would argue that a family is the most intentional aspect of your life. And we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars investing into business, but we don't do that for our families. You've done that because of your mentor that kind of pushed you into that. But first of all, if you could share essentially what your mission or vision is for your family, and then has that stayed the same or has that evolved with your family over time?
Yeah, well, it's definitely evolved and changed a little bit. But like, the concept of spending all this money on, your mission statement for the business and stuff. Well, what we have to realize, and I think everybody comes to this epiphany, is your family is the most organic life group you're ever going to have.
Yeah.
Right? So like we spend time going to churches, and you go to a church and you're like, well, I want to get plugged in. I want to find a life group. I want people to pour into, and I want people to pour into me. And like for us, we're a family of 7. You're like, it's there at the dinner table.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that is important. And I mean, would you say like people are kind of missing that a little bit, that family unit is very convenient sample size,
Yeah. I would just argue that most families have gone on autopilot. Like they're expecting to, there's one thing to be said about like, yes, we're all figuring it out along the way. That's totally, we're all just doing the best with what we've got. But most families are not even putting a thought into that until they blink and it's 18 years down the road and they go, oh my goodness, I just blew what I could have stewarded really well. And it's like, you are going to be spending, especially for the first 12 years of your kid's life, you as the parent are the primary voice in their life, and you're spending the majority of time with your kids. After that, yes, of course, friend groups and, academics and whatnot. And then of course, if they go to higher education, you start to lose some of that time with them. But like, I'm just curious as to how, yes, as mom and dad, I feel like you need to model that, but did you also like cast that vision for your kids as they came of age, if you will?
Yeah.
Like, hey, Coop, here's what we're about. Or did you just, in those micro lessons, it wasn't as formal, but maybe just like, here's why we are generous, or here's why we are hospitable?
Yeah. Well, like we came up with like just 3 statements, like team night, serves God, loves well, and thinks eternally. That's basically our mission statement.
Yeah.
And so bringing that into the kids early on in life, it was good to kind of do like, we've heard it so many different ways, like the spaghetti test. Like, how do you tell if spaghetti's done? You throw it against the wall. If it sticks, then it's done, right?
Yeah.
So throwing things against your mission statement. Well, does this allow us to serve God? Does this allow us to love well? Does this allow us to think eternally? If it meets that, then yes. If it just takes away from your whole family time and all that, then you gotta weigh it out. I think my kids did a really good job of taking that in and being proud of it. We have this symbol in our family. We call it E5. It's supposed to be top secret, so I hope I'm not like bothering my kids with this, but it's an E, and then you make the 5 out of the bottom part of it. And it's to be an example in the 5 things from 1 Timothy 4:12, in speech, in life, in love, in faith, and in purity.
Yeah.
And that is like something that we write on little notes. And my kids, even to this day, we have a weird tradition that any special day, like a birthday, Mother's Day, Father's Day, we make toilet paper banners that we will hang up in the house. Sounds funny, but like if you don't get one on one of those special days, you're like, oh, where's the banner?
Yeah.
And that E5 is something that they'll put on there, which to me means it's stuck. And there's so many times in life where we made this mission statement, and we're trying to enact it in our life, and you're like, man, this is not working. And then you have moments where your kids do things and it blows you away. And I mean, can I tell you a quick camp story? We were probably at camp and this happened. There was this little boy who had next to nothing. Like, you could tell, our camp that you served at, we serve a very sometimes under-resourced population. And my oldest son at that time, Cooper at that time, he's still my oldest son.
Yeah.
He befriended this kid, and this kid was really into football cards and baseball cards, and so was Cooper. And Cooper asked me early in the week, he said, hey, Dad, can we hustle back home to Ozark, and can I get some cards I want to give to this guy?
Oh.
And I'm like, yeah, of course, man, we do that. So we go over there. And so, like, I'm literally, and I hate saying this, but it's just the way we are. I'm like, oh, that's so sweet that he's going to give him some cards. So in my mind, Cooper's going to go through all of his cards and just give him the junk.
Right.
Which
ones do I not?
I don't want to like say a certain name that somebody in the NFL's junk, but he's going through them, and I'm with him down in his bedroom, and he's going through it, and he's grabbing out like his best cards. Mm. And I'm like, he's giving away like cards that we probably paid really good money for, right? Yeah. And he's like pulling out Peyton Mannings and like rookie cards, and he's got this stack, and he literally like gave this kid his best. And I'm thinking, wow, is he not modeling exactly what I was hoping? Like, if I would have done the same thing, I'll be honest, I would have given him the junk.
Yeah.
But I learned a lesson from my son, and it actually taught me a life lesson. I was like, it's like, that's literally what I think our Heavenly Father does for us. Like, he doesn't think of like, well, yeah, I'll just give you the remnants, what is left. No, he gives you the best.
Yeah.
He gives you what you need.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just thought it was so cool. But then, because you see those things, and you see that mission statement enacted in real life, and you're like, all right, Lord, you're doing something here. And I think that might be the key too, Lain, is like, whenever we see our family doing really cool things, it's so easy for us to get like puffed up and be like, well, my family, and see those families over there, they're not doing. It's not that. It's the fact that God is working through your family. And then like, it's a great opportunity to like humble yourself.
Yeah.
And say like, isn't it great? Thank you, Lord. Thank you for doing that.
Yep.
In my family, because I know who I am and how like desperately I am in need of grace at all times.
Yeah.
So this could only be you that's doing this. So
that's awesome. I get emotional watching you get emotional about that, because like I'm seeing it, and I have a almost 3-year-old and a 4-month-old, but like I see it in small micro ways right now that just like wrecks me. But I know that, as they get older and hopefully continue to learn those aspects of what is important to our family and why do we do this, like, I hope to continue to be just like jaw drop. I can't believe you just thought of that, or I can't believe you would do that, or I've learned so much from you. And I'm just thinking back to today. Aspen and I were just talking about this before you showed up, but Shep saw a man standing on the side of the road with a cardboard sign, and he said, "What's his sign say?" His sign said, "Anything helps." And he's like, "What does that mean?" And it was just like, well, buddy, I'll tell you exactly what it means. He's in need of something, and he's hoping that people will be generous, and it's just one of those where if I'm by myself in the car, I might or might not notice the guy. Or now I have a little voice that's a mini me going, hey, the more, innocent, childlike faith version of me going, hey, is just what he's needing help? Can we help? It's like, we totally can. And so I'm looking forward to many more versions of
And the
that.
fact that you're noticing those things, and then I guarantee you're also pointing those out to Shepherd.
Yeah.
But like even when I walked into your house today, and Shepherd was a little bit like, hey, who is this guy? Because he's seen me a few times, but it's been a while. And then as soon as he sees that you and Aspen are happy that I'm there, what happens? He was happy that I was there. He invites me to play basketball with him, and we play the game, and he's so hospitable. Why is he hospitable? Because that's what his family models. And there was something that a mentor told me one time about families, and he said, the things that you do in your family are more often caught rather than taught. Think about that for a second.
Yeah.
They're going to catch things from us. Yeah. It's not necessarily because we're trying to teach them. They see us at our best and at our worst.
Yeah.
Our families see us the way no other people in society see us.
Yeah.
And those are those moments where we probably need the most grace, but we also need the most refinement. And I've had college students come to me and ask me like, hey, I need help with like accountability. I'm really struggling with these things. And a lot of times I'll say, hey, I want you to just do something silly for me. I want you to pretend like your life is like a reality TV show and there's cameras on all the time. And someday, the most important people in your life are going to watch that. Okay? Would you react differently? Would your behavior and just the way that you like live your life, would it be a little bit different? The answer is yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think the goal is to like make that natural. Like, well, in a sense, we are kind of in a reality TV show because the Lord knows everything we think, everything we do. And I am not one of those people that thinks that God is proud of me at all. He values me at all times.
Yeah.
I don't think he's always proud of what I do. And I think we kind of want to enact that same thing in our families is like, hey man, I'm going to value you. I'm going to value you in every single thing you do. But there are going to be times where I'm not going to be super proud of the way you've acted.
Yeah.
Because I'm a man too. And your mom, she's made mistakes too. We will love you through it. So let's just figure out how to not keep doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. So the more things are caught than taught is phenomenal. I also think about the fact that like we always place it's something about like when you have kids, the advice that's commonly is like, be careful. They're always listening. So make sure you don't say this or don't say that because they'll repeat it or pick it up. It's like, yeah, but the inverse of that is also true. Like focus on, they're also catching all the good things that you could be saying. So it's not just like clean up your language type thing. It's like also know that they're catching every aspect of your day because they have a front row seat to your life. And I also love that line about like, yeah, a good father is not necessarily proud of you as you're doing something that would break his heart. He's kind enough to correct that. And so I'm the words I've been playing around with a lot lately are, I told Aspen, I'd rather be kind than nice. And what I mean by that is like, if there's something that like you have food between your teeth or something, it's like the nice thing to do would be like, oh, I'm not going to bring that up because I don't want to make him feel awkward. The kind thing to do would be like, hey, you've got something, right?
Yes.
And it's like, I want that to be my model in parenting as well. Is like, I want to be friends with my kids and I want them to respect me. But more importantly, I want to be kind and caring enough to develop their character. Like the Lord has entrusted me with that. So how can I do that in the highest regard? And yeah, that's not applauding them as they walk into something that's not beneficial for them. It's caring enough to call them out. And so
that goes exactly with like the concept within our family mission statement about thinking eternally. So because exactly what you just said is what you can try to establish in your own family. Really, first of all, establish within yourself. It's like that's true of the gospel. So like you could be nice by not making someone feel awkward, or if you know someone is going to die at some point, and go to a place that isn't very good
Yeah.
at all,
Yep.
or if we, if we see, VW Bug getting ready to smash a little kid, we're not a very good person if we don't like save that person, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not kind, not nice either.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's exactly the same thing, is like thinking eternally. We've got to make those calls, and we have to have a conversation. I think it was you at one point, we were talking and when you were in college about the words of, I believe, that have been entrusted to St. Francis of Assisi. It's like, speak the gospel at all times, but use words if necessary.
Yeah.
And I think you and I were both like, that's a great quote, but it's like not a great quote.
Yeah.
In the sense that like, you've got to speak the gospel. You can't just let your actions always exhibit it. You gotta say the things.
Absolutely.
You gotta say your faith.
Yeah, wasn't planning on saying this, but I think the root of that conversation, because it's coming back to me now, and that was 6-7 years ago, but it's like, there was a gentleman that played football with another guy you showed this video at camp or in training or something, and he had played football with a guy for 4 years, and the running back was this believer, and he just never felt comfortable to bring it up to the QB, who was a party animal, always had the girls and all this stuff. And he got saved his senior year, and he found out when he started going to church that the running back also went to that church, and his line was like, "Why did you never say anything?
Yeah.
You had the key to life and you put it in your back pocket." And it's just like, that is crazy, to think about. It's like, yes, model it 100%. We should be walking the walk. But yeah, there's also something to be said about like, you have the best news in the world.
Yes.
Why would you not share that? Why would you not be outspoken about that? And so this kind of transitions into this line of thinking, but like, something that I feel like I've grown in is, whenever you met me, I cared so much what every single person thought of me.
Yeah.
Like, I would die for someone's approval, anyone's approval. I was just, I don't know if it was attention hungry or just this like fear of letting people down. But like, now something that I've grown into is just like understanding who I am in Christ, and then also understanding who matters most and what voices matter most. And so I have a line, I don't know who said it, but this is kind of what I've adopted, is like, at the end of my life, I care what the Lord thought of me, my wife, and a few good friends, and kids, and a few good friends.
Yeah.
And it's just this concept of like, I hope I lived in such a way that the people that had the back door approach to my life, or behind the curtains of my life, goes, yeah, he was faithful in and out.
I love it. That reminds me of that concept from Stephen Covey, like beginning with the end in mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a chapter of that book where he literally talks about, if you were attending your own funeral, what would people be saying, And, I've actually thought about that chapter, and to some extent, I'm like, it does matter what some people are saying.
Yeah.
But it matters more about what particular people are saying.
Yeah.
Because those are those people that are close to me, that I've really invested my life in. But I also think that like that concept of, those few people, it's not something that you could like shepherd. Let's go 30 years down the road. You can't start being an intentional father like 29 years from now.
Right.
And him think that you were an intentional father.
Yeah.
Aspen can't be an intentional mother 29 years from now from him to think that.
Yeah.
It's literally something you have to start now. And you don't have to be perfect at it.
Right.
What you were saying something about, like that example about the football players. I've actually talked to a lot of young adults, and it's kind of common for me. You and I both have that favorite question of like, hey, tell me your story.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And tell me your story. And then if they don't give me enough information, I'm like, tell me about your family.
Yeah.
And when they start talking about their parents, and like, we went to church, and then I might follow it up with, so like, would you say that like your mom and dad, like are believers? You'd be surprised as to how many young adults are like, well, I don't know. I don't know. But I would think as like an intentional parent, that's one thing that I want my kids to know.
Yeah.
I want them to know who I serve.
Yep.
I want them to know who I love and adore.
Yeah.
Those are kind of imperative. Like they've got to know that I serve Jesus Christ, my God and King. Who do I love? I love my wife, like none other, and I love you.
Yeah.
And like there's just certain things that we don't want to leave to chance.
Yeah.
Sometimes we got to use our voice.
Yep. I always say there's too much at stake. Like
100%.
Like truthfully, and we always have this line about like it's never too late, and just in life. But you're right in regard to parenting. You do have a like window of entrustment and responsibility with your kids, and that's not to say that it's ever too late to go and try to like rekindle, like if there's a broken relationship with a parent and child. But what you're saying is, whenever it comes to like them knowing what their mom and dad stood for, the principles that you have the opportunity to speak into your life, and our pastor Ted Cunningham is always huge about, it's just huge about over the 18 years that they're in your house, you're transitioning them from a place of control to a place of influence. Like when they're little, Banner is 4 months old right now. Like we have a lot of control. Like he needs us. He's relying on us. As he gets older, that becomes more just influence. And I become like a influential person in their life that I hope they still look up to and admire. But yeah, after they leave the home, it's kind of like, I hope what I've done serves you well, and they can always come back and ask for my advice and help. But you have that window of entrustment, and I feel like God is like, use that well, don't squander it. There's too much at stake, and too much to leave up to chance for other people, because if you're not the voice in your child's life, the world will gladly take that for you. Yes. Like the world will gladly start to step into parenting. They're not going to do a good job at it, but that's where they're going to get their information from. And so,
and you'll experience moments as a father, like, you're talking about how Shep, you have a lot of the control. Well, I am in kind of experiencing right now where, you're always going to have influence, right? But, influence is always stronger when there's a closer proximity, right? So your influence in your home, when your kids are all under your roof, very, very strong influence.
Right.
But what happens when your kids leave, And that's what Aubrey and I are experiencing right now. And I had a moment the other day with one of my sons. Well, actually, both of them. This is really cool moments. I had a moment with my oldest son where he called me and he asked me to, help out with a few things in the wedding, like to take some responsibilities in the wedding, which I was so happy about. And he goes, but the reason why, like he could have just said, hey, Dad, will you do this, this, and this in the wedding? And I would have been like, son, anything. But he goes, but the reason why is you have been an influence in my life. My whole life, you've always been there for me. And I've seen that you are the same at home as you are at work, because he happened to go to the college where I work.
Right.
And like for him to say that, I'm like, oh, that felt so good.
Yeah.
And you're not doing it for the accolades, but man, it does feel good when your kids are seeing consistency. And then my other son, my second oldest, Carson, just for the record, Lain, I am blessed with great kids.
Yeah,
like they're so cool. But Carson called me because we're trying to figure out how to get him a different vehicle. Because I've found an amazing deal on a vehicle for my daughter who's about to turn 16, and my son's truck died, so he's been using mine, but right now he's using that one. But I just was like, hey man, I'm sorry, I can't like just throw a bunch of money out right now with the wedding and all that stuff. But man, I want you to know, I really, we're working towards that. And he's such a hard worker. He literally calls me. He's like, hey Dad, I am so blessed by you and Mom that you pay my insurance. You give me a phone, and even the fact that I have a car that I have access to. Like, Dad, please don't feel bad about that. And this is a 19-year-old who is literally telling me the things as a 49-year-old that I felt like I really needed to hear.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, I feel like a failure. And isn't that funny, Lain? Like we always like feel like failures, even though we have to remember that God is working in the background of all these things.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I love that. That's a testament to your parenting and raising good young boys. But just out of curiosity, like you have 5 kiddos, so oldest 2 are boys.
Yep.
Then Claire.
Yep.
And then boy, girl.
Yep.
So
Calvin and
Cammie. Yep. So how has I just out of curiosity, like each of those personalities are different. I don't have that experience yet, other than like Banner's 4 months old. He could end up being a lot like Shep or very different. But as a dad, what's been the most beautiful and the most difficult part of parenting, 5? I would imagine some of them are very similar and some of them are drastically different. What's that been like?
Well, I mean, Cooper and Karst Aubrey and I kind of felt like we were parenting them in very close proximity of the same age.
Right.
There was just like 25 months between them. So, where we would take them both, and their interests were the same. And if one was in soccer, the other one was in soccer. If one was in basketball, the other was in basketball. So it was pretty cool. But then we added our sweet Claire to the mix. And there's such an amazing aspect of parenting where I parent boys in a certain way, and then I parent my girls in a different way. But like my 2 girls, Campbell and Claire, are just like I just can't get over how like amazing and beautiful and vibrant they are. But learning how to, like, with boys, like Calvin included, like when I'm coaching them or they mess up in a sport, we just have an open conversation about it. It's just wide open. Claire and I had an experience just a few weeks ago. I didn't get permission to talk about this, so I'm not going to go into detail, but where she's, first of all, she's incredibly talented, where she was not able to perform her best in a race. And the way I would have parented the boys was just like, hey, let's talk about it. Let's, you tell me what you did. With her, it was just hugging her and just letting her cry, letting her just emotions just melt off. And then when she was ready, she came to me and she wanted to talk about it, which is like learning those things is really cool. And then seeing kind of the same thing with Campbell, of like, they need the affection first and then the coaching. And you didn't ask this, Lain, but I love that I have a coaching background, because that has really, I feel like, helped me in parenting, being able to analyze things and learning like when to pipe up and when to just be quiet. I think it's so important. And not to mention, my wife has taught me a lot of that. She's so good at like saying, hey, I think she needs a little tenderness. I think he needs a little more time, and navigating those things. Number one, I would not navigate them well unless I didn't have an amazing spouse. Like Aubrey really, really just balances me out. And when Aubrey and I went through marriage counseling, one of our pastor at that time, he's like, I have never counseled 2 more opposite people. And I'm like, what does that mean? But it's obviously we're getting ready. Tomorrow is our 26th year anniversary. So
that's incredible.
I think God's blessing that.
Yeah. I feel like Aubrey and Aspen, this is probably true about both of them, but Jefferson Bethke came in for a marriage conference that Aspen and I were at not too long ago. And he was talking about his wife, and he said that she's the smoke alarm of the family. And what he means is like she's able to pick up on things before they, go out of control, where I'm not as keen or aware on some of those things. And I know I could tell that Aubrey has that gift, if you will, to be able to like, ground your family. And Aspen is true in my life about like, hey, here's some things I'm noticing. Let's be aware of this. Let's make sure that this doesn't cause some damage here. So.
Isn't that neat though, that the Lord blesses couples with, like if you really lean into the gift that people are, he blesses us with the those opportunities to have a spouse that really points out things that we need to be more aware of, because on our own we would not be aware of them.
Right.
So
Yeah. What a blessing. Well, I'm curious, as just like I'm thinking about my legacy, and not necessarily in a prideful way of like, oh, I want people to remember my name, because let's be honest, and a few centuries from now, no one will even know I existed, or I might be in a family tree here or there somewhere. But like, I'm thinking of legacy more in the term of like, what values am I instilling that's having that eternal value that you talked about earlier. So thinking about that for the Knight family, what do you want your kids and other people to remember about Ryan Knight specifically?
Well, I want them to remember that life is really about something that is bigger than me. That, I mean, this sounds like a really like weird, like not even weird, but almost like a pre-planned type answer. But I would really actually hope that when people think of me, they think of the one that I serve more than they think of me.
Yeah.
And I feel like I am able to speak at that from experience, because about 3 years ago, my father-in-law passed away, and Steve Prophet. And when, I've experienced celebrations of life, I've experienced funerals, but going to his funeral and knowing him and knowing like how driven he was to share the gospel to young adults, how driven he was, like he was like we always called him like a maverick, because he was so different than everyone else the way he did ministry. But going to his funeral and seeing the people there, number one, I mean, it wasn't just about the sheer number, but there were a lot of people there. But it was just the number of people that he influenced and impacted. Like he never had a lot of money. He wasn't driven by worldly success. He was really driven by, like, I always do this thing like where you live your life with your arms wide out open like this, and you try to like bring as many people to heaven as possible with you. And that was really him. And like, I want that type of legacy. Like, I cannot, if I go through Springfield, he ran the Potter's House. My mother-in-law now runs it in Springfield. And anybody that finds out that I am Steve's son-in-law, like, I can guarantee you're going to say, oh man, Steve was always there to talk to me. Yep. Like he always made time for me. And like, how cool is that?
Yeah.
To think like, it wasn't about like, oh, Steve gave me $1,000 because he had it. Yeah. It's Steve was there for me. And so if we can be the type of people that would be very Christ-like in the sense of like being available for people, opening our homes to people. Like, that's what I want my legacy to be. Is I want my, when my kids are at my funeral, I want them to reminisce about, I always remember the days in the cabin at camp with like 30 counselors in there, and we're singing songs and we're playing games. I loved having Thanksgiving dinner, and there was always a random smattering of young adults there. Like, I want them to know that that's what our life is about. I hope that that legacy of serving others is something that my kids do because they see the value in it. Getting to do marriage mentoring with like young adults, and then going to their weddings, and then those young adults have kids, and then my kids knew the couple, and they're like, wow, they have kids, and like, it's just like, right now we're in a really cool spot. A couple that Ab and I were able to do their marriage mentoring, and I mentored through college. He has been mentoring my sons. So, and how full circle can you get, man? Yeah. I mean, it's just a neat thing. And I am so thankful for the life that the Lord has given me. And it has had a lot of bumps and a lot of bruises. And I've made a lot of mistakes, but guy at CEVO, Dr. Chin, he always uses a term, truckloads of grace.
That's right.
And I love that I serve a God that provides me with truckloads of grace.
Yeah.
So
that's good. He's out of the country right now, but when he gets back, he's going to be on the podcast.
Oh, he's amazing.
Yeah, he's awesome. So
listen to that one.
One of my favorite memories, and for the people watching, is just like camp is a world of its own. But Ryan and his wife led a camp for years, and I had the privilege of doing 4 summers with you guys out there. And one of like my favorite memories from camp, and there were a lot of them, is I remember looking at the clock one night because we were out on the front of Boone Cabin, or like that, just sitting out there underneath the picnic tables and that like pergola area. And you're talking to us on the porch there. And I look down at my phone or whatever, and it's like almost 1 a.m. And I look to your right, and Cooper's out there too. And I was just like, this is a guy that is pouring into me, and then countless other counselors. And you were letting your like son, which is so funny because now we think about bedtimes and all that stuff, but like you knew the moments to bring your kids into. And that was always just something like, I want to do that. Like, I don't want to be so rigid and by the book that I miss an opportunity for, and I'm not saying anything like life-changing happened that night that Cooper needed to be there for, but it was cool enough to me that like you saw value in the conversation being had enough to be like, I'm going to let Coop stay up for this one.
Well, we will never win a parenting award for getting our kids to bed at a good time.
Right.
Because we still are bad at that. But, I do remember very distinctly when we first were allowed to do the camp ministry. I remember I was sitting in training, and my daughter Claire came in, and I'm talking to the camp staff, and she just stands behind me, and she's like messing with my hair, and I just like paused, I froze, and I was like, hey, you guys, I'm sorry, I know we're training, but I just met a life goal. And they're just kind of looking at me. I said, when I was at camp as a counselor, I had a director who was doing a Bible study, and I couldn't tell you what the Bible study was about. But man, his daughter came and was putting flowers in his hair, and he was just talking to us. And then he'd turn around and just give her a hug, and she'd kiss his head, and he'd just keep sharing the gospel with us. And I remember as a young adult saying, I want that.
Yeah.
And this is the moment. I'm like, I got it.
Yep.
I just had that moment. Something to think about, Lain. It's so cool as a parent when you can live your life out loud, and you're not having to hide things from your kids.
Yeah.
Funny thing happened about a year ago. I have a closet in my house that is, I share it with my daughters in the sense that my clothes are in there and my Campbell's dress-up clothes are in there. But it's mine. Like, nobody goes in that closet, and sometimes, not very often, but sometimes when I just need peace and quiet, I will just go in there and I'll pray.
Yeah.
And I was, it sounds so silly, but I was just on my hands and knees just praying about something. And Claire opens the closet and she goes, what are you doing? I go, I'm just praying. And she goes, I really like that I caught my dad praying.
That's so cool.
And in that moment, I was like, how cool is it that my daughter caught me doing that?
Yeah.
And didn't catch me doing something else awful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because there's, gosh, like that made an impression on her. But just as good of an impression that made on her, what if she would have walked in while I was having a takedown discussion with somebody who I maybe call a friend, and I'm like, just saying something awful to them, and like that wouldn't have been good.
Yeah.
And
it would have left an impact on it in a negative.
In a negative way, yeah. Everything we do.
Yeah.
Stakes are high.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to kind of wrap it up here because it's been such a good conversation. But one of the things, and you don't know this yet, so you're finding out right now, but I finished up there's a book called FatherGood, and it's specifically for young dads, like that are just in the trenches trying to figure it out. And I share a lot of stories of examples of other guys that have caught along the way. And chapter 0 is what it's called, chapter 0. And it's called You're Not Ready and That's Okay. And you'll see this in there, but I tag that phrase and I give you credit for it, because I probably wouldn't be with Aspen right now if it wasn't for you speaking a lot of truth into my life that summer. And one of the things that you told me is like, I was worried about blowing my relationship with Aspen. Like, I didn't have the best track record with relationships. I was trying to figure it all out and trying to make sure that, okay, and in my head, I've got to be perfect before I find, my person. And I remember sitting there and talking to you about it. And I said, I'm not ready for that. And you said, okay, that's fair. And you said, by the way, you're not. And you go, you're not ready. And that's okay. And you gave me that challenge that summer of like, Lain, just take some time to realize your goal should be becoming a better version of yourself day over day. Not, I'm going to wait until I get perfection, because newsflash, you're not going to ever be perfect. And so just want to say thanks for truly one of the most pivotal phrases in my life that's followed me. That's the advice I now give if there's happens to be a dad that's in the trenches with me of like, hey, I don't know if I'm ready for that. I'm like, yeah, you're not ready for the middle of the night diaper changes, and you're not ready for a lot of the things that's going to be thrown on you. And that's okay. Like none of us are. And so just want to give you credit for that line, but also just more than that, just give you gratitude and show you the utmost respect for truly being one of the primary voices of what makes me hopefully a good father. And so just genuinely, thank you so much. I love you guys. I love you and Aubrey so much. And just remember that if that tagline of don't be just a father, be a good one, like a lot of that is now possible for my life because of you.
Well, thank you, Lain. I'm very proud of you and Aspen and what you guys are doing, and so excited about what the Lord has in store for you guys.
Thanks. If there's one thing you could leave with a young dad in the trenches trying to figure it out, what would be the quick 30-second elevator? Here's what you need to know.
Well, live your parenting life without regret. Don't be the person that says, well, I almost did this. I mean, so many times we've almost volunteered. We've almost helped that person. We almost had the courage to speak up.
Yeah.
Don't be that person that regrets what you almost did. Just be excited and happy and proud of what you actually are going to do, what you are doing, and do it. Have the hard conversation with your kids. Love your wife differently than the world loves people. Be the person that does it, not the person that almost does it.
That's good. Well, thank you for not just being a father, but being a good one.
Thanks, man.